What's up, guys? Kim Becker and Cody Rourke here for your weekly Denver Broncos AMA, brought to you by Mile High Sports. First and foremost, make sure that you are following Cody Rourke on Twitter. He will send out this weekly tweet asking what questions you all may have when it comes to the Denver Broncos, previous games, future games, the status of the team, literally anything you may want to know. Cody will hop on here weekly with me and give you his answers. Cody, this is our last one before Christmas. So first of all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that jazz. A better week last week than normal for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, hey, anytime you can get a win, it's always a nice thing. It's, it was great for the fan base. Fans were really excited that, they were able to watch a very good second half for the Broncos in their obviously 24-15 victory against the Arizona Cardinals. Defense was smothering. The run game was going. It was a good thing. But now, I look at this weekend's game. The Broncos obviously play on Christmas, and hopefully Broncos fans get a win in their stockings instead of the coal of a loss against the Rams.
Absolutely. The Rams are weird, up and down. Obviously, yes. Baker Mayfield there now, but it looks like Russell Wilson will be playing. We'll talk about that probably a little bit later, but we will get to some of these questions from fans. So we'll start off. The defense of the Denver Broncos have obviously had a very good season. Had a good game last week, Justin Simmons with 2 interceptions. But this question is, can the Broncos show this coming Sunday that they can score without needing the defense to snatch 2+ interceptions in a game?
Well, obviously when the offense possesses the ball on drives, you want them to go down and score. I don't think necessarily Denver getting 2 interceptions is the reason that they scored, right? Because the defense's job is to get the football back for the offense. I think that we can maybe see the Broncos build on what they did well in the second half. I thought protection was much better because the emphasis was more heavy set, 13 personnel. And you also utilized a guy who I think was back in the lineup that nobody's talking about, who made a tremendous impact for the Broncos offense last week. Andrew Beck, fullback, tight end, hybrid option there. He created a lot of things there in the run game for Latavius Murray and Marlon Mack. I think you see a little bit more of an emphasis of that, and there is a chance that Courtland Sutton could make his return this week against the Los Angeles Rams from the hamstring injury. But, I think the biggest thing for the offense is, you want to lead drives downfield and score. If you don't do it and the defense gets you the ball back, hey, you got to find a way to capitalize. And the Broncos did that finally last week against the obviously the Arizona Cardinals. The week prior, they did that against the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a little bit of a different story against the LA Rams, and we're not sure if Aaron Donald is actually going to play in this game or not.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one there. A lot of question marks surrounding that team and heading into what is obviously the last few weeks for both of these teams. But still, we're hoping for a good matchup. We'll move right along here. Also, with Mathis being a clear cornerback number 2, what happens with Darby? Will there be a restructure? Will there be a trade? What are you thinking with that situation?
Yeah, hey, Damarri Mathis has played very, very well, right? And, I always think it's funny. We have these moments where we look at a young player, we look at a player who's playing in a game, and we equate to a not so memorable experience, right? And I think for Damarri Mathis, it was the first game he started at cornerback. He was flagged 4 times for pass interference, and I think you can make a real great case on at least 3 of those PIs. Shouldn't have been called. Let the guys play, especially what we're seeing in the NFL so far this year. And then the narrative after that was, he gets called for PI too much because of one game, right? The same thing happened. Jerry Jeudy had 5 drops in one game against the Chargers his rookie season. All of a sudden, the narrative has been, Jerry Jeudy, all he does is drop the ball, when that's not the present reality of the situation. Damarri Mathis has been so damn good under the radar. Hasn't had an interception, but he's not allowing a lot of big plays, and he did a really good job against guys like Marquise Hollywood Brown, against Robbie Anderson this past week, as Patrick Surtain drew the matchup assignment on DeAndre Hopkins. As it pertains to like this situation with Ronald Darby, obviously he suffered a torn ACL in the Broncos Week 5 loss on Thursday Night Football to the Indianapolis Colts. He still has another year on his contract. And so for me, I do think that the Broncos maybe approach him and ask him to restructure his deal. But I think a lot of people are saying, well, what does this mean? Does it mean that Ronald Darby's not going to play anymore for the Broncos, or Damarri Mathis is going to take a backseat to him when he comes back from an injury? I don't think that's the case, because, Kim, one thing that we've seen, the Broncos, they need cornerback help. They need cornerback depth. It's really Patrick Surtain, Damarri Mathis. Outside of that, Darius Phillips placed on IR with a hamstring injury. Michael Ojemudia hasn't been given a chance to really play. He hasn't been on the field. He's been a healthy scratch for about 4 or 5 weeks in a row now. So Denver doesn't really have any cornerback depth behind those guys Ronald Darby, you know, from where he's at, I think you can find a way to put him in a role where he and Mathis can both play next season. They could play a healthy amount. Mathis might be able to play a little bit inside the dime package opposite of K'Wan Williams. So I think that the Broncos look to ask Darby to restructure. Like I said, I think there's a process that comes along with coming back from an ACL injury. So that could take some time for Darby, which is why you have a guy like Mathis in the first place.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. We should probably just put you on this coaching staff here, Cody.
Here's the thing. I said
there.
it the other day. I told Jordan Beasley, PR guy at the Broncos, I said, hey, tell Coach Parker, obviously Broncos DB coach, I'm like, hey, I will sign a waiver. I will play for free if you need any help at cornerback. I will gladly volunteer as tribute.
Oh, you'll suit up. I was just thinking coaching. You're going to suit up.
Well, they got great coaches on the defensive side. Christian Parker is fantastic. He might be in line for some coordinator jobs.
True. Well, then there you go. It'll be open.
So, hey, maybe you never know. I'm a DB guy, but like I said, you ever need just an extra body or someone to run down on kickoff and sacrifice their body, I'm the guy.
Dude, careful what you wish for right now.
You never know, right? It could be like the crazy story. Media member signs one, 10-day contract with the Broncos.
One day.
Runs downfield, makes a tackle, out for the season.
Oh, you never know what this team may need after this coming week. It feels like every week the needs shift and they're heavy. If I'm just gonna say that nicely there. But okay, we'll keep answering these questions. We've got some more here before we wrap up. The next one is, do you see the Broncos bringing back Murray and Mack or just one of them? We're still talking all these situations that will happen in the future. So, Coach Rourke, what do you got for us?
Well, for me personally, I think that Marlon Mack, so many people forget how good he was initially. He was explosive. He was a former 1,000-yard rusher. He suffered a torn Achilles, right? And anytime you suffer an Achilles injury or an ACL injury, something along those natures, a lot of times people say, okay, well, hey, you're going to lose your explosiveness for the most part. Like how explosive you were previously, you're never going to get back to that. I'd say like for Marlon Mack, it's been a couple of years. Like it's taken him, I think, 2.5 years to really kind of get to where he is. But like he looks explosive right now. He looks as explosive as he used to look, which is a good sign. He obviously had a rushing touchdown. He and Latavius Murray complemented each other really well in Sunday's win against the Arizona Cardinals. But I also look at it as well. Latavius Murray had over 130 yards rushing in this game. He had a touchdown, got his first career game ball, which is wild to think since he came to the league in 2014. And he's had some pretty good performances. He also had a really good performance against the Broncos, I believe, in the Kendall Hinton quarterback game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, over 100-something yards. I'm surprised he did not get a game ball for that one. But that's another story for another day. But Latavius Murray has been embraced by this locker room. He's been such a good guy to talk to in the media. He's one of those guys, like the moment he came to Denver, the Broncos lost on the road in L.A., and I just remember he was one of the first guys to be open and talk with the media about the game. Hey, we just got to continue to rally together. Very positive, great leader. You can see why the Broncos really value him inside that locker room. Javonte Williams suffered that really bad ACL injury. Also suffered, some other damage to the knee in that loss in Week 4 against the Las Vegas Raiders. In my opinion, I look at a guy like Latavius Murray, look at Marlon Mack and what they've been able to do and how impressive they've looked as a duo. You need 3 running backs in the NFL. You need a stable of guys, pun intended here for the Broncos. Javonte, I think in a situation like this, when you see how these guys are playing, I think if you're Javonte Williams, you're like, okay, you know what? I don't have to rush myself back from this injury. I know that when I come back, I'm going to get a healthy dose alongside Latavius. I know I'm going to get a healthy dose alongside Marlon Mack. Javonte will be the feature guy. He'll be the number 1 running back for this team, but it's about being smart with his recovery and not bringing him back way too soon. And you also have to factor in, after you suffer an ACL injury, there's a mental process. Kim, when you're out there on the field coming back from an ACL, you're constantly second guessing. You're constantly thinking about, am I taking too many steps? Am I planting my foot wider than my base, right? Because you put unnecessary tension and torque on the knee. That I think is something that we see a lot of athletes go through. Nobody touches on it too much because they're like, oh yeah, they could just come back in 9 to 12 months and they'll be all right. Like there is a mental process alongside the physical as it pertains to an ACL. So I think expectations for Javonte coming back from his injury, I think people need to temper those a little bit and just, be patient with him because it's going to require some patience as well. He's going to try to find his footing and try to get back to where he want to be. I think a great example would be J.K. Dobbins for the Baltimore Ravens, what we've seen from him this year. He's kind of suffered a little bit of a setback and then came back, had some big explosive runs, still dealing with some knee soreness. That's still going on. Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets, another great example here as well. I know you probably talk about that with Ryan Blackburn at the next Nuggets AMA.
Yeah.
But I think that you have a pretty good 1-2 punch here with Latavius and Marlon Mack that you should focus on next season for the Broncos. I think both those guys should be back.
I feel like we were just talking about this season, and we were talking about depth and injuries and everything that we were excited about, not excited about heading into this season. And now it's just such a bummer that we're already talking next season. This one's a wash. It's over, whatever. But it's true, especially with these injuries. Depth is extremely important, as we know, for injuries, but also taking that timeline and taking the time needed for these guys, I think makes total sense. And there's so many different factors that go into it out of all angles of these situations. So makes sense with that one. We like that one a lot. Let's do this next one. Thoughts on Justin Simmons passing Steve Atwater for career interceptions with the Broncos? What do we think here?
Well, this is a really cool thing, right? Because we look at Justin Simmons. He had a 2-interception performance this past Sunday against the Cardinals. A couple weeks ago, he had a 2-interception performance against the Baltimore Ravens. And on the season, he's got 5 interceptions. So that's 3 consecutive seasons in a row for Justin Simmons where he has 5 interceptions. That's crazy. And he's also the first NFL player to have 4+ interceptions in back-to-back-to-back seasons, multiple seasons in the National Football League. He truly is a special player. But I think what's even more crazy thinking about it is Simmons. I mean, he's missed some time this year. Like, he went on injured reserve after week 1 with an injury, missed some time, and the Broncos' safety production didn't fall off. Caden Stearns did a fantastic job filling in for Justin Simmons. But for Justin to come back, and there's still 3 games left on the season, he now has a chance to have a new career high. If he can get just 1 interception in these final 3 games of the season, he'll have a career high with 6 in a season. But more so, with the interceptions that he had in Sunday's win, he now has 26 career interceptions, which surpasses Steve Atwater, who had 24. The bond that these two have in the locker room, Steve and Justin, I mean, they're so close-knit. It's a kind of like a brotherhood mentorship type of thing. Like, they have so much love and respect for each other. It's a really, really cool moment to see, because you could say Steve Atwater is the greatest safety in Broncos history. And you could look at Justin Simmons and you could say, hey, Justin Simmons is also there as well. And what a perfect guy to kind of carry on the torch of Steve Atwater at the safety position, back to back, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, 3, for the past 3 years, minus this year. Dalton Reiser is that guy for the Broncos this year. I just think that what Justin's been able to do on the field, his production, he's so smart. He's a great leader. He is, I think, a glue guy as to why the Broncos have held firm together this season, despite how bad things have gone from a win-loss standpoint.
Yeah, he's an incredible person for this team, an incredible representative and many different facets. And I'm sure Steve Atwater would not be upset if Justin Simmons was the one to take over that number there. He's an awesome guy, a great guy, it seems. Obviously, you have some more close personal ties with him, seeing him in person, whatnot through the season and everything. But I completely agree with you there. Great guy. We would love to see that, especially with the season that the Broncos have had. It would be nice to have some positive things come out of this season. Do you think the Broncos will pick up Jerry Jeudy's 5th-year option? However, let's talk about Jeudy. We mentioned him a little bit earlier. Obviously, his rookie season, a little tricky this year. We've seen some frustrations out of him, but we have also seen him produce. So what do you think about that 5th-year option for Jerry Jeudy?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I think you absolutely should pick up Jeudy's 5th-year option. And I think that anybody, and part of me wonders how George Payton feels about this. When you look at Jerry's first 3 years in the NFL, you look at just some adversity that this guy has gone through, in a sense. Like, his first, his rookie season, he had 3 touchdowns on the year. He had a really impressive 92-yard touchdown in the regular season finale a few years ago. The talent is there. His rookie season, he did struggle with drops. You go into his second season, which was last year, week 1. I mean, against the New York Giants, he has 6 catches, 72 yards in the first half. Then he gets rolled up on, and we all thought that he broke his leg because of how, the angle and the replay showed it. Luckily for him, it was a high ankle sprain. It forced him to miss 7 weeks of action. He returned week 8 against the Washington Commanders. And from that point forward, he didn't even get used in the offense hardly. He was just a guy that, Pat Shermer would bring across in motion and wouldn't even target him, wouldn't even look his way, wouldn't even put, a good offensive coordinator is going to put his best playmakers in a spot to make plays. They completely just, I'd say, misutilized Jerry Jeudy. So that's not on Jerry, in my opinion. That's not Jerry's fault for that lack of production last season. And also considering the Broncos are going through the quarterback carousel with Teddy Bridgewater, and also you had Drew Lock and the inconsistencies, the highs and lows that those guys had there. This season, Kim, We saw it in week 1. Jerry Jeudy had the 67-yard touchdown. From that point forward, after that game against Seattle, Jerry hasn't hardly been targeted in comparison to how much, a guy like Courtland Sutton has been targeted as well. Then in week 10, first play of the game against the Tennessee Titans, he suffers a high ankle. He missed a couple weeks. He came back, bam, 3 touchdown performance for Jerry. A couple weeks after he returned, the first week back against the Ravens, he had 4 catches for over 60-something yards. He shows that when the offense features him, when they look his way, when they scheme him to get open, they scheme him in some one-on-one matchups, and they throw the ball his way, great things happen. In my opinion, he is the wide receiver 1. He's the top dog for the Broncos at wide receiver because of his playmaking ability. And I think Denver has to continue to build on that. And I want to see them do that. There's 3 games left, Kim. There is no excuse why Jerry Jeudy shouldn't get, in my opinion, 8 to 9 targets a game in these final 3 games. You have to see that happen. I think it's a no-brainer. George Paton should pick up his 5th-year option.
Okay, before we wrap this one up, thoughts on this coming game against the LA Rams? What is your gut telling you, Cody?
Well, watching the Broncos and how they've kind of found a little bit of momentum and rhythm the last couple of weeks, looking at the Rams and kind of how they have played, granted they had that comeback against the Las Vegas Raiders a few weeks ago, Thursday Night Football. Watching them this past Monday night, I was just watching. I was like, you know what? Denver can beat this team. Like the Broncos, they can run the ball against this team. Granted, it helps if Aaron Donald is not playing. Yeah. And you could even you could target a guy like Jalen Ramsey. Look, Russell Wilson is going to play in this game on Sunday. He's going to be making his return off of the concussion. The Broncos held him out as a precaution this past week, even though he cleared concussion protocol. In my opinion, I think you need to attack Jalen Ramsey, who's having one of the worst years of his career so far. Denver, I think, can go on the road in LA and put coal in the stocking of the Los Angeles Rams.
That would be such a great Christmas present for
all
us and for all Denver Broncos fans alike, I'm sure.
Well, not to mention on top of that, the Nuggets play on Christmas. They play the very hated Phoenix Suns. And, it'd be great for I think all of us in Denver who cover Denver sports, if both Denver teams come away with a Christmas Day victory. I mean, that's all we, for me, I don't ask for much. I'd be happy if that were the case.
Don't ask for much. I completely agree. And, we had a good weekend last weekend with a big Nuggets win, an Avs win, and a Broncos win, minus Friday night for the Nuggets, of course. But we had a good weekend last weekend, so let's run it back for Christmas weekend. I would love that for Denver sports fans all around. It would be awesome. But Cody, as always, thank you so much to everybody tuning in. Thank you for watching, for listening, for sending in your questions. Make sure that you are following Cody on Twitter and, of course, following Mile High Sports on Twitter. We'll send out that weekly tweet asking what questions you may have. And Cody, I will see you right back here next Wednesday for our next Broncos AMA.
Looking forward to it, Kim. Thank you so much.